Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Mannimal Research. Those of you that will join us live tonight, and those of you that will catch it later, we want to say thank you very much. Tonight's episode is going to be brought to you by ShowMeBigfoot.com. Talked a little bit about him last week, and I'm going to continue to do that because Gary's a good guy. He's put together a good website over there. Once again, it's called ShowMeBigfoot.com. And like us, he's not making any money off of doing this. He's doing it off of his own dime. He's a web developer, so he designed a really, really good website. So anything you guys want to know about Bigfoot or about avenues of finding Bigfoot, basically, is what he does. He lists all the different shows and different places you can go to find information. So, you see, I think I got it right here. Yeah. Guys, go check out ShowMeBigfoot.com. He does a really good job. He also has a donate tab there if you guys want to help him out, and he's got some merchandise for sale. Because every little bit helps, guys. So we would appreciate it if you go check him out. And if you haven't already, guys, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and do that if you don't mind. We're adding new subscribers all the time, but we're nowhere near where we want to be. So guys do that if you don't mind. Also check out our website, MannimalResearch.com. Report your encounters. You can also get in touch with myself, Ricky, or Walls to talk about doing some research of your own. Maybe get with us and go out in the field and do a little bit of research of your own and maybe become a member of Mannimal if that's something you might be interested in. And also, if you report your encounters and think you might want to come on and share it, that's something we could talk about too. All right, got all that out of the way. I'm joined tonight, as always, by my partner in crime, Mr. Ricky Weaver. How's it going tonight, Ricky?
Going good.
Good deal. Good deal. Heard you been a little bit under the weather with your shoulder.
Hey, man, I reckon it's all part of getting older. That and car wreck.
Well, you had some help. You were rear-ended, so that ain't a part of getting older.
Well, let me tell you, all my advice for the older people out there, please stay out of car wrecks. They are killers.
Ricky has been he's been working his tail off on a new project that we've got up and going, and I believe it's ready. He's got the first edition of this called the Scorchers Report. It is a monthly newsletter brought to you by Mannimal Research, and this is Ricky's baby. He's been working on it. Ricky, you want to talk a little bit about it? You got a copy there to hold up?
Yeah, I got a copy right here. You see it good?
Yeah, we can see it.
This one's 56 pages. It's real neatly bound, real good looking little magazine. I'm doing these to help promote our podcast and also help promote our research. These you can get for $5 a copy. I already have the volume 1 and volume 2 finished, ready to go out. Working on volume 3 now. As I said to start with, these things are evolving as I do them each month. This in the third volume, we're adding a lot of new features. One of them is a moon phase feature, which I think a lot of people will be able to find helpful in doing their Bigfoot research. I've been working on this for the last couple of days, pulling everything together, and I hope everybody likes it. Wayne, if you would tell them how they could get a hold of a copy, please.
Be happy to, guys. If you'd like to pick up a copy, all you got to do is just email myself or email Ricky. You don't have our emails, you can go to our website. Lord knows we promote that enough. It's put it back up there for you guys. You can go to our website, send either of us an email. Like Ricky said, they're $5 a piece, and every dime of that will go to Mannimal Research to help our cause, to help fund our expeditions, buy equipment, and stuff like that. A lot of people out there ask for donations and stuff like that. I don't have any problem with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all if you can help people out that way. But that's something we've never done. So we're just trying to raise a little bit of money to go toward our expeditions, and like I said, our equipment. So email either Ricky or myself, or a lot of people on here I'm friends with on Facebook. You can send me a direct message, guys. It would really help out if you guys could pick up a copy or two, or just spread the word about it. The money, $5 is not a lot of money. It's not gonna break any of us, and it certainly goes to a good cause, and we greatly appreciate it. Gotta show Ricky some love. He's worked his tail out on this thing. All right, Ricky, anything going on before we talk about our guests?
Oh, not a lot. I've got my email open, and I've been getting a lot of encounter reports, and also in this new newsletter, I'm installing at least 3 to 4 encounters a month, where people have had personal encounters with Bigfoot, and I hope you enjoy reading about those. I really think it's one of the better features of the magazine. Uh, Something that I hope everybody will enjoy. Other than that, Wayne, let's bring our guest on.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit about them first. Tonight, we are very excited to bring you guys the guys from Arkansas Bigfoot. You can find them on YouTube. His name is Ken King, and he is joined by his wife, Rachel. So we have Ken and Rachel King joining us tonight. Guys, if y'all haven't seen Arkansas Bigfoot on YouTube, y'all need to check it out. They're doing some cool stuff down there. They're getting some really good footage. And I was telling them earlier, it's not the last episode. It was a couple episodes ago, that videos that they released. It's called Junior Says Hello. Guys, go check that out. They have actual footage of a Sasquatch taking a couple of steps. It's good, clean footage. It's from not very far away, and it's pretty impressive, guys, to be honest. And that's the norm. That's the norm for these guys. They're getting this kind of stuff all the time. They have a gifting area set up for them. They live down in Arkansas on about an 80-acre farm. But yeah, I'm gonna let them tell you the rest of it. So we are very happy to welcome Mr. Ken and Mrs. Rachel King. How's it going, guys?
Hey, all right.
Hey, Wayne. Hey, Ricky. How are you guys tonight?
Doing good.
Good to see you.
We're doing well. Yes, ma'am. Good to see you guys. Talked you guys up a little bit, but we want to get right into it. We got about an hour, and if we go over, that's fine. But want to ask, first of all, what were your knowledge of Bigfoot before your first encounter, or before, just what got you guys into the topic, and just take it from there, guys.
Well, I think for me personally, it was something I was always aware of and familiar with, even as a young kid. As far as experiences or having any kind of interactions, I grew up in the southern part of Illinois. We hunted, fished. That was a primary source of, bringing food to the table. And I was out in the woods all the time. And thinking back on it now, there were a lot of experiences that I had at that point in time that now I can put 2 and 2 together and realize there was a lot of Sasquatch activity even in that area down in the river bottoms.
Okay, so you got your start in Illinois.
Right. That's been a lot of years ago, but it's always been a perpetual interest, something we'd kind of look at off and on through the years. Of course, life gets in the way and you get busy and work and kids and all of that stuff, and kind of put hobbies and things like that on the back burner, and really didn't think about it a whole lot. And last year, probably
Fall.
September, early October, I'd went out in the woods to cut down some of the sticks to make walking sticks out of, some of the saplings. And I was going along, cutting a few down, and I heard something crash, crash, crash out through the woods ahead of me, maybe 65, 75 yards out. And I looked up, and it was huge, dark, rusty, brown, red, massive, way too big to be a deer. And all I could catch was just the backside of it mowing through the brush. So that was the first physical seeing something out there.
He took me with him, told me what he had seen, and took me with him. And right away, we started finding footprints and evidence, light evidence at that time. The evidence, the structures, the glyphs, all of that built after we started really going out there, the arches and so on. There were a few, but nothing like there is now.
Yeah, the first month there were a few. There was that twisted vine structure that was out there, and that's where we first started putting the apple hanging on a string.
And when we saw it, we knew something was off because it was a vine that had been wrapped around almost in a square
around
trees.
4 different trees.
And it was tied off with what looked like a piece of bark.
The bark had been stripped off of something else and twisted and braided and tied around this vine to hold it in place. We knew nobody had been back there. Yeah, so
it piqued our curiosity.
And that's what really started us on the road to where we're at with it now.
And right away they responded, leaving. We knew that when we found footprints in the mud or someplace obvious beyond the pine straw, beyond safe areas, that they were allowing us to see it. There was just that immediate feeling between us and them about what we were finding and that it was intended.
So you feel like they were starting to leave things to get your attention?
Absolutely.
Well, prior to all of that, we had heard on different occasions sounds coming out of the woods that didn't sound right. They were just off. You'd hear a distant wood knock, but you'd dismiss it, mark it off to something. We weren't really thinking Bigfoot at that time, but you'd hear odd noises and strange things happening back there.
And we weren't really having any
trouble
activity at the house or anything difficult.
No kind of trouble or anything up around the house itself, although we found out later. That some of the dog toys and a fishing pole and some other things, a leather work glove that I had left out there, had gotten snitched and taken deep out into the woods and left. We found those later.
But the irony was it was almost as though they were showing us that they could lead us to these things, because we would be on some off the beaten path compared to where we normally went out there, and then whatever had been missing would just be there. And I thought, okay, who's playing who here,
Mm-hmm. So did you guys know pretty like right off that this is what you were dealing with, or was there a time that you weren't sure?
I think when we found the foot.
It was pretty evident after we found the footprints out there. Let me lean down. I'm going to grab this to show everybody.
This is not our best cast.
But that's not, get it in the camera here, that's,
Whoop.
Lost my earpiece, hang on, hold that.
The other one that we have had cracked right across here. This one didn't feel as well as the other one, but it's a little sturdier.
That's pretty impressive, though.
This is the one we call Big Daddy or Anku.
Anku? Is that what you said?
Anku. Anku is the name we were given for him. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, you were given a name for him. That's interesting.
That we'll get into that conversation as we go.
Yeah.
But
okay.
One of the things when we first started out we weren't exactly sure how to go about it or how to handle it. And like most people, we got on YouTube and got online, and we started off with the basic normal procedures. And we're looking at just an animal that hadn't been found or whatever. And that's the way we approached it in the first few videos. But
pretty novice stuff.
As time went on, it was plain to see that we were dealing with something that was a lot more intelligent than we gave it credit for. Something that had a lot more different abilities than what we had gave it credit for or were aware of at that time.
A greater sense of being and a sense of spirit about it than a normal animal or person.
Okay, you guys, y'all mind going into that a little bit, or?
Are you ready for it?
I think so, yeah. I'm ready.
If everybody's ready for it, we're ready for it.
And just so everybody knows, we're just as much about the physical as we are about the paranormal side. It's just that they are constantly bringing us the paranormal or quantum aspect of who they are. So we go with whatever we're given.
Okay.
So keep in mind that through the years, we both worked in metaphysical arenas off and on. Rachel was a medical intuit. She worked with police departments in helping to find missing bodies, homicide cases, things like that.
A lot of intuitive counseling.
So there's that part of that history in our background. So that's something that we're comfortable with and that's familiar to us.
And those parts of who we are in our mind are already kind of open, which makes a big difference.
So when we started encountering some of the things out in the woods that we were encountering, it wasn't hard for us to put two and two together from what our perspective was, because we were already familiar with that.
As far as the paranormal, it never reached us as impossible. It gets pretty deep with them.
And to give a long and short of it, as the course of time went by, they had developed more and more structures, had glyphs, and had pulled down arches and things. And we started getting a lot of different manifestations of orbs and EVP voices on the actual camera that came through that spoke in Native American dialect or a cross between that and another unknown dialect. We've had that several times. We've caught ghost apparitions on camera out there before.
Well, we think ghost just because of the look of it, but we really don't know because it was just far enough. It's hard.
It's a white
silhouette body.
Yeah, head and shoulders and torso.
Now, do you think that maybe you could be dealing with two different things? Like this area could have spirits, ghosts, and things like that. And
it can be a lot of things out there, as we found out.
There are definitely a lot of things out there. That's some old ground, and it's been inhabited for years and years and years, long before we ever came into being a thought in anybody's mind. But it escalated after all of these arches and these stick symbols started to appear out there, that we found the obvious foot tracks from the Sasquatch around these structures. And it was like they were opening up these windows and doorways, so to speak, and it just ramped up that activity. So yeah, right now it's a lot of stuff going on down there that we're still just scratching the surface on.
Well, and with Anku, he that kind of happened starting with the traditional mind speak. As most people know it, it was basic. We would have a conversation, for example, and then the next time we went to the woods that afternoon or the next day, there would be evidence of the conversation we had. And no matter how random.
And a form of an answer to the question we had been asking 2 or 3 days before that.
But we found that with them, it's more of if you have a genuine curiosity, a childlike curiosity about something, and you're really going, it's something that makes you scratch your head and really makes you ponder. it's not, if we have some basic question that we don't have any emotion or any real feeling in,
they kind of ignore it.
Disregard that.
Yeah, they kind of ignore that.
But when it's important to us, they make it important to answer it.
But just so you understand, this is not all about the whole woo side of it. Our working lives, I was a gunsmith for almost 30 years. I worked with a lot of big places and with a lot of, I'm not going to drop names, but a lot of important people. But everything was mechanical. I need to know how stuff works. Everything is very logical and rational and reasonable. I need to find what the problem is so we can find the solution to the problem. Very analytical. So that's the way that I approach most things, just out of 30 years of habit from doing that. And
I was in salaried management and primarily in retail and restaurant work, and it was all about the people. It was all about communicating. It was all about feeling and what makes you happy and what's going to make this go. And so it's funny how we've taken the two stronger parts of who we are, because Ken's always coming up with an idea to see if he can validate or prove something, and I'm always communicating.
I mean, sometimes I kind of take the humorous road about it, but you've got to have a laugh once in a while. You can't be serious and nose to the ground all the time.
And they have a very cheeky sense of humor.
Yeah, they've got a really
love laughter.
They've got a bizarre sense of humor. Their idea of humor is to throw sticks or rocks your direction just to see what your reaction's going to be.
But they're not intending to hurt you. They just like that whole cause and effect thing.
They enjoy that shock surprise reaction, I guess. I don't know, but
we haven't had anything thrown at us in a little while, fortunately, so it'll make you jump.
Ken, I've got a question for you, bud.
Yeah.
In your research area, I know you spoke of you being a gunsmith. Do y'all actually take weapons into your research area, and what would be the reaction of the Sasquatch in that area if you did?
Well, no, I don't. I don't take anything other than my pocket knife whenever we go down in the woods, because I've honestly never felt the need for it.
Oh, okay.
I've hunted everything all over the country, big game, bear, elk, moose, deer, you name it. I've chased after it. I've killed a lot of things that needed killing and a few things that didn't. And, you get to a point where you got to just stop and look at things for what they are and kind of fill them out and realize that, doing the same old habit of loading yourself up for bear to go out to where you think a Bigfoot is, you don't really get the results. They're either going to stay clear away from you or they're going to be extremely aggressive.
We just fell under the conviction not to, but we're not really saying that others shouldn't.
There's areas that, if it weren't for the fact that was our own area, I would probably take, some little something in my pocket just for insurance. Because a lot of the forestry around here has got cougar, there's black bear in different parts of the state, and wild dogs and feral hogs and everything in between. And that's not accounting for some stray psycho that's out in the woods wandering around that's been camping out there. So yeah, in those places, I would suggest that you would. And if I were going to carry a sidearm, probably nothing smaller than a 44. Other than that, you're just wasting your time and making noise.
But right. in this location, in this situation, when we first met, we hadn't really gotten down and dirty back there as far as exploring it, or as far as really, we still have parts of it left to explore. But for some reason, after he saw that rusty red, when I got back there, I had the compulsion or the need to, there was something very strange in the air to me. And I felt the need to ask permission, which is odd because it's ours. But I felt the need whereby I did. And I think it was our first test. I think it was to see if there could be communication, number one. And number two, if there could be respect. Respect is huge with these people. Common courtesy. This is their house. Knock on the door. We don't have to do that still. We have kind of a honey, I'm home attitude.
Yeah, even though you might be paying a mortgage on a piece of dirt, you don't truly own that dirt. You're just renting it for a while. And this is their house, their living room that they live in.
Their family.
You'd get pretty upset if somebody came barging through your door unannounced and just did what they wanted to do. You'd be really upset, right?
And I think that's where some of the more negative experiences might come from for people. And it may not be intentional. Maybe they just happen to be in a place and don't even have a clue that they're around. But if they did and had gone through that measure, maybe the response would have been a little bit different.
Okay, so what you said that you asked permission? Is that what you said? Now,
I took it from a different angle. Instead of thinking of it as ours, I found myself, I guess, sensing that something else was there. And what would I appreciate if it were me?
Okay.
So there must have been a deep-rooted part of me that knew what it was, even if we didn't have our proof yet.
Now, did you physically speak the permission, or did you think it?
Both.
Okay.
But
And
there was one part.
Actually, some of that's on one of those first videos. You'll see her cross the little creek and go up, and there's two trees right on the trail, and she puts her hands up on the trees, and she's asking, is it all right that we come in here today?
And when we reach a new part of the woods that we haven't explored yet, I find myself instinctually doing that because maybe that's Mama's area where she's got her babies, or maybe, it's an area that we haven't designated as mutual territory for us to explore, or be with them. And they're always with us in that.
And trying to condense all of this down into an hour or possibly a 2-hour conversation, it's overwhelming and a lot to take in. We realized fairly quickly that there was a big female back there, which was the dark red one that I saw.
No, you saw him.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm. The one I saw, I believe, was the female, but she's almost black. She's so dark brown, she's almost black. And the only reason I could even pick up any lighter shade on her was because of the sun shining down, and it was like highlights on her hair. But she was just stepping between trees. But with the juvenile that we've become fairly close with, we call him Junior. I believe that he was close to where we were, and that she was just allowing herself to be in that physical so that we could, more like a distraction, so that he had an opportunity to maneuver.
She stepped out between a couple of trees to let herself be exposed so we wouldn't be looking where the young one was at. That's what she's saying.
She is so peaceful. Every now and then, when we first started going out there, we could hear her grunt, which is different than the other grunts. And it was a little more of a warning, but it didn't really create fear. It was just more of an awareness that she was there and that we were closer to her and the babies than
her comfort level was at that time.
Than what we realized, and more than what she was comfortable with. And Junior, he was forever running up, like you could literally almost feel a wind. Sometimes you'd see this black streak go by. It would look like it was the color of charcoal, but it would look like
a flash just coming by.
going by us. That's how fast that boy could move. And we both do double takes. What the heck was that? You know? And it took us quite a while to figure out all the way they maneuvered. They're really, really good with sound. One day we were walking through, it's on one of the videos, I don't remember the name of that particular video, but we were walking through and we were close to the second gifting tree, and all of a sudden, I lie to you not, I heard a whole tree come down behind me. And I took Kim by the arm and I swung him around. It scared me so bad I about jumped out of my skin. And all he heard was a grunt.
Whoops, growls, and grabby hands. That's the name of that
Whoops,
video.
growls, and grabby hands. But he was just playing. And
it was just to get a reaction out of us to see what we'd do.
And you could almost feel the laughter in seeing me, spin Kim.
Just think of a 12 or 13-year-old boy pulling pranks on you out in the woods, and that's what it's like with him.
We're almost sure he's between 11 and 13.
Okay.
But he's a big boy.
Oh, he is?
Oh, yeah. About 6. He's a good 6 foot, if not.
He's probably at least my size, if not bigger, and I know he's a lot heavier.
His foot has grown immensely in the last number of months. And they say that if you take the foot, divide the inches by 2 and add 1, and his foot right now would say that he's 7 foot tall.
He's probably pushing every bit of 350 to 400 pounds.
Or more.
Wow.
Too many snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we overindulge him with that.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, do y'all mind talking a little bit about that, about the gifting that you do and the things that they tend to like as opposed to not like so much, and just the reaction that you get from it?
We started out with
just the apples.
Just apples. And when he would hang a string, he would core them out and hang a string down the center with a stick tied to the end of the string, so the apple was free hanging with the stick propping it.
Okay.
In a space, that way we knew it wasn't raccoons or deer, or, And
yes, yeah, so we'd hang the apple up 5 foot to 6, 7 foot up off the ground, far and away from the closest tree. That way, if it was a raccoon, they couldn't get to it or anything else like that, and it would disappear. I think only twice in all of the times did one ever just stay left alone out there. And that was at the very, very beginning of it. Mm-hmm. But once they got in the habit of it, it was game on. And
part of it, I think, was routine, because I believe they were staying at the back end and weren't realizing we were going to be consistent in visiting them, because we hadn't been prior to that.
And we tried using the game trail cameras around where we would put stuff up, and the only time we ever caught an image was the very first night that we had it out there. And we caught just the head and shoulders of Junior peeking around a bush, and you can see the eye shine and the silhouette of his head and part of his shoulder.
And that's been nearly 6 months ago now.
And I think when the IR bulb went off for the night flash,
he was done.
He was done with it. And ever since then, if we try to put them out there, they'll tear down a small tree and
put it in front of the camera.
Put it in front of the camera.
They're pretty smart.
It sounds like it.
So they're well aware of what they are and what they do.
We realized in short order, it was the first week of March, but we realized how they manipulate electronics very easily. From taking pictures to...
We've had pictures appear on the phone and on the camera that we didn't have them turned on at the time. Kind of blurry, odd images. Just as recently as 4 nights ago, I am habitual about charging up all of the electronics, the cameras, the batteries, everything. I mean, I'm obsessive with it.
This was the first.
And we got out and we were going to try out some of her equipment during the night. And I had 180 minutes of runtime on the camera. And we turned it on and we weren't running the camera 3 or 4 minutes. and
We
you
felt,
could feel.
both of us felt something rush up behind us. I mean, it just felt like a hard wind. And we both looked over our shoulder. I looked over my left, he looked over his right. At the same time, thoroughly expecting something to be there.
And you could just feel the energy run up behind us, stop, and then run directly away.
And it reminded me of the time that I spun Ken around. It had that same upsurge. And his battery went dead.
Yeah, another minute after that, the low battery light came on the camera, and then it flatlined. It was completely out of 180 minutes worth of charge in just that minute, you know.
But that's the first time that has happened, you know. So we're glad for that. But I just think somebody was playing and glad to see us, and that's the way they act. They get very excited, and it's almost like a puppy, you know, and they'll run up and, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And phew, off they go.
And sometimes they just try a little trick just to see if they can get away with it.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, is apples all that you guys have been leaving? And do you have a certain spot, like a gifting area, that you use?
I'm sorry, I was going to answer all of that, and we got off track talking about the battery.
That's fine. That's fine, guys.
But yeah, I mean, we started with the apples, and then I think we took some little jelly beans and some candy out there after that. And then it kind of progressed into taking peanut butter out there, popcorn, and just some odd and end, like a granola
peanuts.
bar or bags of peanuts still in the shell, things like that.
Mostly natural foods, as natural as we could get them. The only thing that we really cheated on are Cheetos, because they love Cheetos.
He loves Cheetos.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you know,
we
then
tried grapes.
We tried all kinds of different stuff, and I got the bright idea because I had made this big double pot full of cabbage stew and took it out there. And we thought, there's no way he's going to touch that, you know, turn his nose up at it. And we came back the next day, and it was wiped out.
I mean, the entire container was bone dry. He loves ham and beans and cornbread, jalapeno cornbread. Anything spicy.
Anything spicy. We've taken sauerkraut and sausage out there in a container before. They've wiped it out. The other day we took sardine sandwiches with pepper jack cheese and horseradish mustard on them.
No fight for me.
And they're gone.
Wow.
They're really not. The only thing that we found.
Citrus. They don't seem to care for something that's citrus-like.
Yeah, but that's not native to this area. You know, like in Florida, citrus would be native, so they probably would be more familiar with it. Not sure.
But they didn't really care for the oranges and
grapes.
And the grapes weren't quite ripe.
They were a little bit sour, and there was a spot where we felt Junior was going. We call it Skunk Island because that was one of the first places we got a whiff of that whole skunky dog BO smell.
Well, it's a mound that the creek runs around all different sides of it, and I think they kind of use
lookout point.
I think they kind of use that for their outhouse because that's what it smells like.
But he had gone to the edge of it just across from our second. We only have the two gifting spots, but he had gone across from that second one. And I walked over there seeing a bag, thinking I was picking up trash, and on the ground he had taken the grapes that were sour and he had chewed them,
crushed them with his mouth,
crushed them, and then spat out the
peel and the pulp.
So we didn't take grapes after that because we figured he must not like those.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Pappy is asking. He says, "Ask Ken about the booger energy bars he makes for them."
Booger energy bars.
Well, that could refer to a couple of different things. I think on the how are you doing tonight, Pappy? Glad to see you on here. The video that I posted today, it's called Abducted in the Forest. And I've got a little intermission clip about halfway through the video where I'm showing how I make the cereal bars, and I use sweet feed like you would use for goats, and shelled corn, bird seed, pack all that into a container and pour molasses on it. and then thick Jello mixed and pour all that on, and it sets up like a feed block. And I'll take that out there sometimes and use it. But one of the better videos that we actually got a lot of crazy sound recording and stuff from, we had taken, and this all started as a joke from one of the viewers had commented about, I'm a coffee hound. I love coffee, drink it all day and all night. And I said I should take some coffee beans out there and leave for him. Well, it ended up I took espresso coffee out there that was full of cream and full of sugar and a bunch of other sugary snacks. And just imagine a bunch of 4 and 5 year olds on a sugar buzz in the middle of the night. And that's what it was like.
Junior brought a whole tree down.
He tore
The
all.
next day we went back out there. It was a younger tree just on the edge of the creek, so it didn't take a huge amount of effort, but it was rooted well. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with the tree, and we hadn't had a storm. We got out there and the whole thing. I think he went swinging on the vines or something. I don't know.
It had not rained or anything that night, and we came out the next day, and the tree was probably that big around, and he'd had it shoved down across the creek. But
the root system on it was probably at least 3 foot.
Yeah.
3 foot in diameter.
And
Pretty
they had
close.
a big spot in the mud where it looks like they had a wrestling match with each other. It was probably a good 8 foot around, where one of them or a couple of them had just laid there and went crazy. But
They're just always doing something to surprise us. And Junior has, well, we think they're younger siblings, and he tends to be hanging out with them quite a bit now, so I don't know if he's helping to teach them. But we are feeling like they're twins. Their foot is the same size, and they appear about the same when we feel like we've caught them on video.
you'll catch glimpses of them peeking around trees in some of the videos. You'll see the little face and maybe a shoulder and an arm peeking out. But I think he's got babysitting duty sometimes out there.
But
So
we're
you think
waiting to
there's a
see.
couple of other smaller ones?
In fact,
Go ahead.
we, okay, so there's 2 the same size that, in working with Anku, the impression is that they're about 6 years old, 5, 6. And their foot right now is measuring 6 inches? About 6 inches,
to 7
so they're
inches.
only 3 or 4 feet tall. But then when we've caught, it's a more cloaked, not completely cloaked, but when we've caught what we feel is Mama, she looks like she has a baby on each side of her. So we think she might be prone to twins, although Junior is not a twin. Ask me to explain that. I don't know if I can. I'm sorry. It's just,
You'll have to dig back through some of the
There's a
videos
lot.
of the last 3 months to get up to speed with a lot of this, because we're out there most of the time, at least twice, if not 3 times a week. And every time we go, there's something different that has happened or going on. There's just a few times where it's just been a basic fill the trees kind of deal.
they made a whole, I don't know, Pappy, if you'd call it a medicine wheel, but they took stones that they had left for us. And there was part of them at one gifting tree and part at another. But they made a whole medicine wheel with the stones. And we had taken orgone blocks. Ken made some orgone blocks, which helps. How do you easily explain that? It kind of helps control electromagnetic energy. But there were 3, and we had put them at different trees, and he had originally just taken them out there to see if they might intrigue them.
I took them out there out of my own curiosity to see if they could sense them or to find them. So we hid them around the base of 3 different trees, and when we came back,
They had the wheel.
they had that wheel
They put
created.
the blocks in the wheel in a line, and then there were some other stones very specifically placed.
And it laid out a triangle glyph and a square and some other symbols around it.
And so we've left it, but we feel it's funny because just every time we get to a place where our relationship or communication or something is in the process of change, or where we're able to go to the next step, if you will,
get a little closer or whatever.
They rearrange. We found that all of the stones or the blocks or something will be different. The glyphs.
They'll change something in it.
So we've
Now,
left.
do you guys go out mostly for day expeditions, or do y'all go out at night ever?
Do we go out at night? Yeah, we go out at night.
Maybe once a month. We don't really make a big habit of it.
Do you find that the behavior is different?
They're a little more standoffish at night and I think it's because of all the lighting that we have to use in order for the cameras to pick up anything. We've got a IR night camera, and I've got some little IR floodlights, but they don't do a good enough job for what we really need. So when we turn the regular lights on, trying to light up a 20 or 25 foot area for people to be able to see, then they just stay clear out of the zone of that. You might once in a while catch an eye shine or see a part of a silhouette move across in the background.
Our best night walk, Ken had his what do you call the cap?
Oh, the little hunting light on the cap that has the green colored light on it, and they don't seem to mind that.
They don't mind the green. It's the white, the bright white light they hate. And our best night walk, we were in a small area, and there were quite a few trees, so it was picking up a reasonable amount of light, although it wasn't perfect. But we had I stopped counting with what I was hearing from different directions. I stopped counting 5 that were probably within 20 to 25 feet or less of us.
But even the IR lights, they can see them, and they know what they are. Going back to the game trail camera, once that went off in his face that first time, he didn't want any part of it, and they can see it in that infrared spectrum. So they know, even with that camera, that we're out there. If we turned every other light on and had no smell whatsoever, they'd still know we were out there with the camera. They can see the infrared.
They tolerate the camera, but they don't tolerate light well. What's it say, Pappy? Oh, it's the same. But it's really difficult because if it were up to us, we would go with less lighting for the experience, because we feel. There was one evening we went out there, and I could feel Junior. I mean, literally right behind us. I could hear him and feel him.
And hear his breath.
Came on, he just froze up.
Hear his breath breathing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when we go out there, he's been around us long enough, and he's young enough. Now, if he's close to us, you'll hear the slightest grunt, but it's not aggressive at all. It's almost more like a hey, and off he goes. And
the answer to the next question that I know is going to come up, yes, we have gone out there without any cameras and just sat in the woods, and they come fairly close. Close enough, like on the video that you were telling everybody about. You can see them move through the bushes that close, 25, 30 yards out in the daylight. At nighttime, they get closer than that. No way to validate it. You just have to take my word for it, because if we don't take the cameras, there's no way to show you. But they do.
It's a catch-22. It really is.
Yeah, unfortunately. Now, guys, do y'all ever take anyone out with you guys, or have y'all gone by yourself?
Right now, we want to keep the area the way that it is, with just our energy working with their energy, and see how far we can get with this point of it. And I feel like trying to bring anybody else into the mix would kind of foul the water. I don't want to mess up what's going on. Now, this new area that we started, it's public access, so yes, anybody could go out there if they wanted to. And if we get any type of real development going on, I'd be more than willing to take somebody to that space.
Mostly
But
in this space, we don't want them to question whether they're safe or not, because it's taken us so many months for them to be willing to get as close as they do, or to know us as well as they do.
We put a ton of time and energy into trying to get it to this point where it is now with them, and I'm not going to do anything to mess that up.
I understand. I wonder if you were to maybe ask their permission or what they thought about it, if you could get a response, if that would be something they could talk to you about.
Probably.
I'm sure they would respond to it.
The biggest thing I think that would be a concern is if Mama does have 2 babies, she's got her hands full.
Yeah.
One baby's enough.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you guys ever get any? I believe we touched on a little bit before we came on. Did they ever come up close to your home? Ever?
They do. They'll come to the wood line up behind the house, and you'll hear them knock, or you'll hear short grunts or a little bit of vocalization. We know that they've been up in the yard before because they've taken like dog toys, and the dog likes little golf balls, and they'll come up in the yard and get the golf balls, and we find those way out in the woods 200, 300 yards from the house that the dog doesn't have access to. He stays in the yard itself. They've gotten a leather work glove off the...
They've been as close as right here behind me.
It's probably from the house to the tree line, maybe 35 yards.
I picked up on them as close as the window behind me, but never in the house.
But we've not really ever seen or heard them banging on the house.
No.
Or trying to do anything directly at the house, like throwing rocks at the house. That's never happened. But, we do know that they've been up in the yard area before.
And funny enough, it's usually if we've been talking, like tonight, if we've been talking about them and they hear names or they're picking up on our thoughts,
their curiosity gets the better of them.
They'll come and check it out just to make sure they're not missing something important. They're just curious, really.
I had a little fishing pole. It was just a little bluegill set up, little small pole, and I had forgotten completely about it because I left it leaning up down at the picnic area around the pond, and I didn't even realize that I was missing it. And we found it back in, I don't even know, March, maybe February. And it was out there around that Skunk Island area back behind it.
Way out.
He had drug it out there. Well, there was nothing on it. There was no bait to be, it was just a curiosity thing. He saw me messing with it, so he took it out in the woods and messed with it. And then just left it wherever he got tired of looking at it.
That's cool. One of our viewers had a good question. You guys were talking about when you go out there without cameras or lights, and you're kind of a catch-22. You can't prove it. But have you ever considered taking like a video, or a voice recorder, like leaving it in your pocket?
We have.
Audio.
We've taken that out there before and hung it up, and we've got wood knocks and grunts and chatter.
We've got a couple of videos with some of that audio from the voice recorder where we put it, 30 to 60 yards away from us, and then we go back.
One of them sounds like he's kind of chanting or singing or kind of making a repetitive sound that kind of sounds like, he's saying or singing something to himself over and over again.
But occasionally we'll sing, or occasionally we've taken the drum. We have call it like a spirit drum. We've taken it out there. We've taken the rattle out there.
Played music through our phone out there for them, different sounds and frequencies. I've sang to them out there.
So we don't know exactly what has resonated the most with them, but we're feeling like it's just something that they like,
One of our viewers brought up a good point. Said, could you imagine being a thief walking up on you guys' property?
Ask again.
Imagine being a thief.
coming up on you guys' property. Probably have a bad time, wouldn't they?
Probably.
Maybe. You know, we had a really bad experience with an orb. Now this this one even blew my mind, but
This was just a few weeks ago.
yeah, we had an orb shoot up from behind. We were trying to do night video then, in fact, and had an orb shoot up from behind. Kenny was on my left, and it shot up from behind him and right in front of us.
And just a big starburst right in our face.
And Ken was kind of sick for a couple days.
I mean, immediately after that, I started feeling bad, just like somebody had hit you with a baseball bat. You know, you just knocked the sense out of you.
I didn't feel great, but it didn't hit me quite the same way. For him, it was more physical than it was for me. For me, I just was tired, and I think I was also feeling him. So, to be fair, I don't know how much of it was from the orb for me. But the next day, I approached, when I work with Anku, I guess you can call it mind speak, you can call it channeling, whatever's comfortable, but basically we just have a conversation. And I asked, because I could feel them close to us when we'd gotten out there and started everything. And they weren't really in eyesight as per the lights or the cameras or that, but I heard them walking up, so I knew they were probably 30-ish yards out, and that's normal if we have lights on. But I asked, I said, what in the world happened? You know, and the way it was explained to me was that there was an energy out there. Now, there are a ton of portals out there. Some of them they use, Sasquatch uses.
And remind me of that, and I'll explain that in just a little bit.
But some of them are they're used, but they're not really used by these people. Now, we've found where they have put protective glyphs. For some of them, if they know if they're being used for ill intentions, or if their energy is not right for their space, they will basically close that so that nothing can come into their space that's not welcome, which I'm kind of glad. But what happened was, somehow or another, this energy, and the way I understood it was it had not been there before, or hadn't presented itself as a negative before, either one. And Anku spoke as if, or gave me the thought as if it was either 20 feet, 20 yards, but 20 was strong out from us, and saw it was a bigger energy and a couple of smaller ones, and saw them approaching from behind us. And when they did, the feeling was that it was teaching the smaller ones how to eat energy, which was really disconcerting.
And we're not talking about Sasquatch, about these orbs. These orbs were something else.
Yeah, these were other energies that were not Sasquatch. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of dimensional doorways out in this set of woods, too.
Several people, when they found out you guys were coming on, had warned us that an hour is not going to be enough time. And you guys mentioned it. Ken touched on it, trying to squeeze it all in here. I don't want to do that. We're already at an hour. Would you guys be willing to come back for a part 2 and talk about some more? Because I feel like there's a lot that you guys haven't touched on that we would all like to hear.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Or if you've got a minute, let me kind of explain that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Portal energy real quick. See, we had suspected that a lot of those glyph structures out there had some kind of energy resonance to them. So me being technical, mechanical, and I want to figure out how stuff works, took the EMF meter out there and started walking around to these different things on the ground or under these arches, and we got huge spikes. Our normal baseline reading out there was what, about
48 to 52.
Yeah, it was in the mid 40s, and which
is still high for the woods.
Right, but we would get, like under that one arch, it spiked way up over
200.
230 something.
235.
And a lot of the glyphs spiked up in the 90 to 120 range on the EMF meter. So it was showing us right then and there that these things are emitting an energy
Field.
So, I mean, they're making them for a particular reason.
Mm-hmm.
So that puts 2 and 2 together. Well, this is a portal or a doorway or something like that. They're using it for a energy spot, whether it's just a bounce from one side of the woods to the other.
But interestingly, with those negative energies, quickly, as it was approaching, and Anku, you know, I got the strongest sense that he felt like he had done something wrong because Ken was sick with it. But what he showed me was 1 foot coming up. It was his right foot. In fact, I can see it now. Coming up and stomping, energetically stomping. He wasn't in hard physical form. He was in more energetic, somewhat physical, you know, but stomping that ground. And when he did,
that's when they
that's
burst.
When the orb
in front
shot
of him.
up, and he didn't know if Ken was sick because of what he had done or because of what they had done, but he felt somewhat responsible and just kept emphasizing that it was to protect us, and you know, he would never make us sick. But it was heart touching.
We try all.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we try all kinds of crazy experiments out there. I hid a pet GPS tracker inside of a rubber ball, and we tracked it to a place where Junior had hidden a bunch of little trinkets that we had left out in the woods. He's got a little spam can and a marble and a shoe and a little plastic bag thing that he has carried around. And all of those were piled up in that location where we found the ball with the GPS tracker in it. We've tried all kinds of stuff. But that EMF video, it's called The Meaning of It All. And we walk everybody through on the video and show them all these different spots and how they're getting readings and spiking. And we're not making this stuff up. It's what we're getting.
Okay, yeah. You guys have any idea? I mean, you said you didn't think that those other things were Bigfoot. Do you have? Can you speculate on what you think they might have been? I understand it would be pure speculation, but I mean, do you have a feeling?
We've been given. We had was it about a month ago on the shimmers?
Mm-hmm.
About a month ago, we had an experience with what we considered or called a shimmer being, and their body is kind of like
translucent.
It's almost mirror-like. If you looked at the back of a CD, you know, a music CD or a DVD, that mirror, it has a very iridescent type look to it, but it has just a bit of form like a person. Wasn't Sasquatch. And
did you get the sense like it meant you harm?
What's that?
Did you get the sense like it meant you harm?
Oh yeah.
We weren't sure.
These things like to feed off of people's energy. It's like a
negative needs negative energy, positive needs positive energy, unfortunately.
And I know that you've heard people talk about feeling like they were zapped at different times out in the woods, and a lot of times they want to blame that on a Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And
sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is, but I think more often than not, it's some of these shimmering beings that are out there.
They're a little parasitic.
Yeah, and when they hit you with that, they're literally sucking the life out of you.
And with that low frequency, it automatically affects your energy. You know, we all have an electromagnetic field. And
are they called the shimmering ones?
The shimmers or the shimmering ones.
I'm sure they have a few names, but they're
There's probably different names that different people would use. That's what we call them.
They're very untrustworthy because sometimes they won't approach you, but these did. These were after the explanation we got, it made perfect sense to me why Ken was as sick as he was, especially since it was closer to him, But we haven't had it before or since, and we feel that they took care of the problem once they knew where it had sourced from. But portals, gateways and portals, they open all the time, all around us. And it's not something we're educated in. It's not something we learn in school. Very seldom would we learn it at home. But it's a proper energy combination. It can be, if people actually spoke in a correct tone or a correct word sequence, simple things that we take for granted every day that I've seen, sound creates and sound destroys. And, so a lot of these things have happened due to being irresponsible with our words. Sometimes they're acts of nature, because there's a lot of mineralization. We have a lot of crystal, quartz here in Arkansas. And that seems to be a factor, the mineralization of the earth. So it's a combination of elements. We don't feel unsafe out there, but it has put us more on guard, more aware.
Everything that we've posted has been from the very beginning all the way until this morning. I put another video on there, and we walk everybody through our 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 times a week videos and showing them everything that is going on and what our thoughts are at the moment as to what had just happened on the video before that.
Maybe to a fault.
If there's one thing I'm hugely guilty of, it's for throwing it all out there to let everybody else look at, and maybe I should keep some of these things to myself. But
yeah, we don't know how much of that we could be responsible for by speaking of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all out there. All they got to do is go take a look at it, and it's been a crazy, wild adventure, and it's not even getting deeply started yet.
Yeah, we feel every time we think we've gotten somewhere, we feel like we're just beginning.
I hear that all the time. The more you get into this thing, the less you realize and we're starting to figure that out too. Our group is as well. Guys, could you come back next week for a part 2? Do you think you can do that?
Next week?
Yeah, that'll give you a little bit of time to formulate some specific, I guess, questions that you want to touch on, some of the different things, because
there's so much to
we could sit here for a week if everybody wanted to listen. As long as the coffee pot's on, we're good to go.
That's my job.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, y'all seem like really, really good people, trustworthy people. I mean, I believe everything that you're telling us, and a lot of people speak good about you. And sure, I'm grateful that you guys came on, and I'm glad that you guys want to come back next week, because I just feel like there's a lot more that's going on out in your area that we need to touch on. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us.
Ricky, you got anything before we let him go?
In the area that you researched in, I know y'all had interaction with these things for quite a while. I'm wondering about what is the aging process between the Sasquatch and human?
From what we've gathered,
it's very close.
A healthy one in the right setting, diet, and all of that stuff.
You're talking about life expectancy?
Lifespan seems to be around 120 to 130.
150 on the outside.
Most of them average, on the low end around 80 to 90, but they said a lot of them will live to be 130 to 140. So
here, 100 to 120 felt very strong versus but it's really diet dependent, and you know.
You know, Rachel has a channel called Into the Veil, and it's on YouTube. And if people aren't aware of that, they can go check it out. But she does some in-depth conversation with Ann Koo about these specific topics, and it's pretty amazing what has came through during those sessions. But I was going to say something else. And
we were talking about his life expectancy.
Life expectancy, and I forgot where I was going with something else I was going to say.
I don't know.
Maybe that was it. I was just trying to tell everybody about you. So,
Thanks.
Anyway, guys, we'll be glad to come back next week.
Did that answer your question, Ricky?
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
These guys that we're working with, Anku is Ken got 48. Ironically, I got 52. So we cut it down the middle for the sake of argument and give it a 50 ballpark. Mama's a little bit younger.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot, but they're not incredibly old. Pretty sure they could still kick butt and take names.
Guess I misunderstood. He wanted to know how old they were. I thought he wanted to know.
I don't know.
I thought he wanted to know how old they could get.
Well,
yeah.
One thing is the aging process the same as what ours is.
He showed me a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, within
like 0.75 or 0.8.
It's like our full 12-month 1 year would be a year and a month to them. It's very
just
close. A little bit different.
It's almost not worth discussion.
So let's say you're 60 years old in human life, you would be 65 in Sasquatch life.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much for being on. We went over an hour, but I was warned that we were going to, and looks like we got more in stock for next week, and looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, everybody, I'm glad you came over tonight, and
really enjoyed it.
We'll look forward to next week.
Get your round of questions gathered up for next time.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Good. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Good night.
You too.
What'd you think about that, Ricky?
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, they seem like a couple of really down to earth, intelligent, well spoken people that are experiencing the same thing. I mean, do you call them a liar? No, I don't think so. And they're experiencing the exact same thing, and there's just something more to these things that we aren't even close to understanding, in my opinion.
Right.
You agree?
I think that I think they have been able to tap into the more spiritual side of Sasquatch, and they have actually been able to gain more knowledge as to what most researchers do, as compared to what these creatures actually are and the reason for their existence on this planet. But it's been a really interesting show, and I'm really looking forward to having them back next week.
Yeah, I am too. They're doing something right. They sure are doing something right, and I think we can learn from them. All right, good show. Good participation from the audience, as always. Had our regulars on there. Thank you guys so much for showing up. And I wanted to point out real quick that Mr. Eric Young on there, he's one of our loyal viewers. He is the one that put me on to Ken. You know, there's so many people out there doing what we're doing right now. It's hard to keep up with all the people looking into Bigfoot. And Eric shot me a message on Facebook and told me you got to check out this guy Ken King and his wife down in Arkansas. They're doing some really cool stuff. So I did. Got in touch with Ken, and they came on tonight, and they're going to be back again. So wanted to tell Eric thank you for that. And guys, everybody else, if y'all know of somebody like that, don't hesitate to send them our way, guys. We love talking to people that we can learn from, and Ken is definitely one of those. So, Eric, I appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, that's what the whole deal's about, is for each of us to be able to learn from the other. Um, you know, we can't do it by ourselves. There's no way that we can actually get out here and gather all the evidence that we need to prove that these creatures do exist. There's no way we can do it by ourselves. And that's the reason, this shows like ours are so important to be able to get the message out there from what other researchers are learning in this field.
Very true. Very, very true. All right. Well, let's get out of here, buddy. You got anything else before we go?
Hey, as always, just everybody be safe out there. Be very careful when dealing with these things. We don't know what triggers them. You might have a real good experience one time, and the next time not be so good. So just be careful when dealing with these things. Be safe. If you encounter one of them, just back out and let them have it.
Yep. Very good. All right, guys, we're going to get off here. Y'all have a good night. Thanks again for tuning in, and y'all be good to each other. See you later.